All right, let's refresh ourselves on how we do a translation or a slide of a shape. We are supposed to graph these 4 points first as neatly as possible. A is at +2, so I start at the origin and I'm looking +2 for x and down 4 for y. So I'm going to put my first point right here. I'm calling it A. My second point is +3 for x, so I'm going right 3 and down 1, and I'm putting my point right there for B. C is at +5, then down 1, so it would be just a little bit further to the right, and D is at +6, -4, so I'm starting at the origin and I'm going over 6, down 4, and that's where I need to put my dot for D. I'm connecting all of my shapes, trying to do as neat of a job as I can. I probably should try to be even a little bit neater than that, but there is my trapezoid, the shape that I'm working with. Now I'm reading my next instructions. It says to trace the trapezoid, the x and the y-axis on the patty paper and label. So I'm going to slide my patty paper up here, and I'm going to trace all of those things that I just drew. So A, B, C, D, drawing my shape in, my labels, everything needs to be traced, even the x and the y-axis, and I need to be very, very careful that I'm doing all of this as neat as possible, or else our shape won't end up on perfect corners like we want it to. So it is now traced. Alright, the next thing that it has asked me to do is slide the patty paper according to the rule xy should turn into x -4 and then y +6. I need to write down what that actually means. X -4 means I want x to get 4 smaller, so I would have to move my shape left 4. Y +6 means I want my y number to get bigger, so I'm going to go up 6. So now I'm going to take my patty paper and I'm going to look at one of the corners. I'm going to look at A. I'm going to slide it 1, 2, 3, 4 to the left and up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And when I do this, I'm going to make sure that my x-axis and that my y-axis are still ending up even on the grid lines, and all 4 of my corners should be, all 4 of my dots, should be on a corner like they are. So it says to label my new shape now with A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime with those little tick marks. So I am going to need to put my new shape from my tracing paper onto my actual paper underneath. This is the trickiest part. So I'm going to have to slide my paper up a little bit so I can put my new dots on. They were 2 on each side, A prime and D prime. Now I'm going to move that back down so I can see where my other 2 dots should be. Looks like 2 down from the top. So B prime and C prime. It's a little bit easier with your tracing paper than with the iPad because you can just lift up one flap of a corner instead. So I'm going to get my tracing paper off of there now and connect my new shape. And there it is. Again, I need to practice being a little bit neater than this, but that'll be good for my first try. It asks for the coordinates of my new shape. A prime would be -2, 2. B prime would be -1 for x and 5. C prime would be 1 for x and 5, and D prime would be 2 for x and 2 for y. Number 6 is asking me at the very bottom, and you're going to have to scroll your page up a little bit instead of looking at the screen right now. What happened to the points? So what happened to the x and the y numbers? And if we look at the top, what they started with of 2 for A and -4 for A, and then they went to -2 and 2, we can see that, I'm going to write this over on the side for number 6. over here that the x's got 4 smaller as it changed, and the y's got 6 bigger. And that makes sense because for number 7, it said which directions was the trapezoid translated. We had already written this down, that it went left 4, which is what made that x4 smaller, and it went up 6, which is what made the y get 6 bigger. So our very last question, number 8, says, was this a rigid transformation? So number 8, what they mean by is this a rigid transformation is, are they congruent? Rigid transformation keeps shapes congruent, same size and same shape. So if I look at my 2 trapezoids, they are the same size, they are the same shape, they have the same angles, they're not looking any different, they have just slid. So yes, this is a rigid transformation. They have the same size and the same shape. They are congruent.